What's up, guys, and welcome to the Elite Physique Training Podcast. We're here today with Jonny Hands, and we're basically going to be discussing body management and recovery strategies around kind of intense periods of training, and specifically where Jonny has a lot of experience in with competition prep, and especially kind of at the highest level up to Olympian level. Jonny's probably most known for, I'd say Ryan Terry, you're probably most known for.
Yeah, that guy.
That guy. Yeah. You probably don't know who he is, but so along with kind of some other people really, which I'm sure we'll mention throughout. So really kind of working at the highest of levels, people that really, spend a lot of time and effort with their training for their physiques to kind of get to the next level. But equally, a lot of the info that we discussed can, I suppose, be applied to people that are just starting out.
100%, yeah.
So Jonny, just tell us a little bit about your background for people that kind of don't know.
So my name's Jonny Hands.
That's your actual name,
right? It is. That's like one of the most frequent questions I get. Is that actually your name, or is it a stage name? But no, born and bred with it. So I've been doing this now for about 13 years. So studied over in Melbourne, Australia, and then came back and also did a few courses down in Oxford. So I've been doing it, like I say, 13 years, and got my own clinic. I'm based in Stamford, which is not too far from you. So, and started working with professional athletes about 3 to 4 years into it. Okay. So it wasn't initial straight away work with the top level athletes, and built up and kind of fell into the bodybuilding kind of area. I was always thinking, I'll pick up footballers and all that, because that was my background, was playing football, and just fell into the whole bodybuilding thing. And one client led to the next, and now, thankfully, have a Mr Olympia on the books.
So tell me, let's kind of go into that a little bit. So, what was your first time kind of meeting with Ryan like? How did that happen? How was that connection? Mm-hmm. I know you've known him for a long time, I think. Tell us about kind of how that happened.
Yeah, so just even going back to the start, the first guy I started working with was a guy called Ricardo Carrera, Rude Boy. He's a 212 athlete, pro bodybuilder, and luckily enough, he was from where I lived, so I knew of him before he became pro. And once he became pro, I looked at how he was. He finished dead last, I think, in his first competition, and I actually, probably quite ballsy, but I said, look, I think I can help you. And so he said, all right, I'm open to it. So we had a meeting in Nando's, as you do, as every bodybuilder would do.
Yeah.
And said, look, I've looked at you posing, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a posing expert, or wasn't back then anyway. And I said, but looking at the way your body is and how it moves, and how you're not opening up in certain areas and you're kind of like scrunched in, it was, I kind of just said to him, like, I think I can help you with using my skills and my methods to actually enhance how you then look. So that was kind of like the first initial opening to the bodybuilding world, especially working with pros. And then through that, I then met Ryan. He opened the gym where my clinic is. So the first time I actually met him, I did treat him as well. And ever since then, so it's nearly 8 years. That's how long we've been. I've known him for that long. Known of him, obviously, way before that. And then, I don't want to sound like I'm name dropping, but then from that, I had Romain Lansford, another Mens Physique, IFBB, Andre Diu, which is a big name in the industry.
Some you might know, some you might not.
And then who else? Went over to Dubai, did a little bit of work over there, like Jamie DeRigo, Darren Farrell, and some other people. And that's how it kind of transitioned into that. But at the minute, they've all moved away. I don't know if it was me or not, but they're in like Dubai, Brazil, places like that. So at the minute, it is just a guy called Ryan Terry that I work with.
What's up, guys? Just interrupting this podcast for a brief moment to tell you about our online coaching services at Team Elite Physique Training. So if you're interested in getting in the best shape of your life, whether it's to look great naked, for the beach, for your partner, or to compete at the highest level or for the first time, then Team Elite Physique Training provide world-class coaching services to everyone. All you need to do is head to thefitnessmaverick.com homepage and book your free consultation. Even if you're not sure, book a free consultation with a coach and we can walk you through exactly what we can provide for you. Head to thefitnessmaverick.com and apply today. So what does kind of management, I suppose, of Ryan look like throughout the year, and how might that change? Because obviously we're 10-ish weeks out from the Olympia-ish, and how might that change in like the off season to kind of the period now and then going kind of closer to the Olympia? How might that...
So in the off season, so generally, so if we say the preps is 16 weeks, let's just call it a 16-week prep leading up to the Olympia. In the off season, we always try and do once a week, just as a regular thing, because it's, you know, I think it's a maintenance thing, especially as your business, as your job, what you're doing to your body. Once a week is where it needs to be. If you're a footballer or golfer or anything like that, you're probably having more than that. But for us, it's once a week in off season, and then when prep really starts, we continue with once, see how we go. So we measure have you got any niggles, anything we can work on, because what you want to do, the main key to the prep is you've got a time limit. You've got 16 weeks competition day. You cannot afford to get injured within that, because if that takes you out for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or you can't train a body part for however long, you're going to struggle because you're going to be behind. So going into that, we want to get the body as physically kind of perfect and niggle free and injury free going into the 16 weeks, and then we'll assess what we do. But normally we go, I think it's the first 4 weeks still as once, but we can throw in another session if we need to. And then from about 10 to 8 weeks, it's twice a week, and sometimes even 3. So do kind of the modalities that you use change in the off season versus that prep phase, and what tends to be the things that you're actually focusing on within those sessions? It doesn't really change until you get very close to the Olympia. Like we treat all the way up to the week of. We only stop because of the tanning. And then you can't do anything. But you won't go as hard, as deep. You won't be as aggressive with certain, massages and things like that. If he's got something, you're not getting your elbow into it, because it's just going to cause pain, inflammate, that kind of thing. You don't want that. So pretty much it's just like a blood flow, a bit more of like relaxation. And again, when you're at the end of the prep and you're like dead, you kind of just sometimes just want that nice relaxing kind of. So it does change slightly. You wouldn't do things like cupping, gua sha, anything that would mark the body, which can, some people can, not bruise up, but, colour up really easily. So you don't want that, because again, if you had cupping marks, it's fine. It's fine for Conor McGregor to have them when he fights, but to have a bodybuilder with all red marks and things like that, it's like, no, it's not how it's done. So you do take out certain modalities, and then even like, so what we would tend to use is a vast array. So we predominantly is sports massage or deep tissue work. That's kind of a staple in it. Within that, we'd do cupping, which some people like, some people don't. Bit of gua sha or scraping, as it's translated from Chinese, and then mobilizations, manipulations, and then kind of exercise physiology, and like actually working through certain exercises that will help with that. So it's not just the treatment, it's like what exercises can we add in, whether it's injury prevention or as a warm-up. Right, I need you to warm your supraspinatus up, so let's do an exercise that specifically targets that, because that's what you're struggling with. So there's so many different bits to it, and it's just again, everyone's individual as well.
Yeah.
But if I was to say to like some of your clients, I know you work with a lot of females and things like that, if people were worried about doing treatments all the way up, I wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But also I wouldn't then just go, I'm going to have my first sports massage 2 weeks out, a week out from the show,
Yeah.
and then be like, God, I feel like I've been hit by
Yeah.
a bus, you know. So consistency is key in everything, I think. You know, your diet, your relationships, your training, anything it is, consistency. So start at the beginning and just kind of like work your way in.
Because it's actually, we obviously discussing this before the podcast, and it was only last night I had the question from a client of, I think she's 4 weeks out from a show right now, and she's like, I just fancy a sports massage. Can I have one? So you would tend to say, I'll tell you what I told her in a second, but you would tend to say that it would be better, obviously, if she started a lot sooner out, almost as kind of a maintenance thing.
Yeah.
And I suppose especially early on in a prep and in the off season, you can kind of work on those poses, can't you? You can be like, okay, you know what, your lats aren't opening out, you know, your shoulders aren't opening out, you know, that's affecting your front pose, whatever. And you can actually get a little bit more aggressive with your gua sha and things like that to actually open out those poses.
Definitely.
Whereas if she's 4 weeks out, based on what you've said, really it's a case of, yes, you can have a sports massage, but it would probably benefit her more if it was closer to a skin tickle than a elbow in, you know. And
I mean, I still think 4 weeks you can still, but like I say, you wouldn't be doing, you know, gua sha and cupping and things like that. Manipulations, yes, fine.
Yeah.
But if someone's going to compete, I always just think, like you say, maintenance.
Yeah.
The question I get, how regular should I have this?
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you can afford it, I'd be having it once a week,
Yeah.
you know, whatever. But as a maintenance thing, I always say to my clients, whether they're competing or just day to day, every 4 to 6 weeks, just make sure you're getting some work done. And that doesn't necessarily mean come to see me all the time.
Yeah.
If you want to go and see an osteopath and get fully adjusted and see how, if you want to go get acupuncture, you know, whatever, I always say, whatever recovery method works for you, stick to it. But find out what works for you before you get so close to competition or something like that. Don't go changing things because it can affect it a lot.
Do you find different people vary in terms of their response? So if you were to give the same level of pressure massage to one person as you would another, would one person respond differently to the other in terms of, could one person look a little bit more inflamed, a little bit watery the next day, whereas another person look a little bit leaner, a little bit dry? Do you tend to see that, or do you tend to be predictable?
100%. Every individual is different.
Okay.
But I also wouldn't, this again, as a therapist, you have to then gauge what someone can take.
Okay.
So you don't just go, everyone's getting the same pressure or everyone's going to get the same force or stretch. You know, like me and you, if I was to stretch you out, like your hamstrings, they're probably quite good. Mine,
Depends.
but so you wouldn't just go, right, let's just yank it through. You know, you find the bind and then you work with it. But some people are super flexible.
Yeah.
Like I have a little thing like about yogis.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of their mindset is I need to be as flexible as possible, like stupidly flexible. Yeah. But as we know, a muscle has an optimum length where it functions at its best. Yeah. If it's too stretched, it becomes thin and weak, so you're susceptible to injury. Yeah. But maybe with bodybuilders where it's thick and it doesn't really move that way, you know, again, it's not as optimum as what it can be. So again, you have to gauge each client individually, talk to them. Again, we're all so different. Like work-wise, what do you do? I sit down in front of a computer for 12 hours. Okay, so you don't move a lot. No. I work on the railways. Okay, so you're doing manual work. And you have to kind of like ask them all these little questions and figure out what it is that's probably maybe triggering it or that's causing the injuries. So,
what are some good kind of complementary things to like the service that you provide, having actually working with, you know, someone in person? What are some good kind of complementary things that people can be doing at home have access to, imagine there wasn't some kind of budget or something,
Yeah.
you know, from the cheapest things to the most expensive, what things can actually people benefit from, and what things are you see as a bit of junk maybe?
So I'm a big believer in heat. So like red light saunas, normal finish saunas.
Yep.
I've actually released my own product, which is a heat serum.
Okay.
So kind of like that you can use without kind of seeing me. So like you say, at home, things like that, pre-workout, whatever it is.
So how would someone use something like a heat serum? Would they like self-massage?
Yeah, so specifically with mine, it's water-based, so it absorbs super quick. So you don't have to sit there like with other brands.
Yeah.
Say other brands. You're like constantly just rubbing. With that, it's water-based.
Okay.
So it absorbs into the skin really easy. So you literally put it on, leave it.
Okay.
It'll absorb. There'll be no greasy residue, anything like that.
Right.
And for me, I really like to use it pre-workout.
Okay.
So if I'm training shoulders, I just get a bit on there, rub it on there, maybe into the neck a little bit,
Yeah.
and then wait. It'll heat up pretty much immediately. Bit of blood flow going to the area. I do my standard warm up, and then I'll go into it.
Okay.
So that works really well. Saunas,
Yeah.
love a sauna,
Yeah.
and all the studies now that are coming out about red light saunas and how they can, you know, decrease the risk of stroke and heart attack by like 60%.
Yeah.
Why are doctors not prescribing a sauna
Yeah.
to people who go with heart problems? It's not, you're not asking them to run marathons or like, you got to do this, you got to do this.
Yeah.
You can pick up a sauna for £1,200-1,500. Okay, like you say, if money was no object, but if you could get in that every day, your health will improve.
Yeah.
The studies have shown it.
Yeah.
Same as now with ice baths. Are obviously they're the hot topic
Kinda,
conversation, cold topic. But again, the studies are there of how beneficial they are for you. So you could work in contrast therapy. So ice bath for a couple of minutes, sauna for 20 minutes, ice bath, do things like that. So I'd call that like a flushing mechanism.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because you vasoconstrict in the ice and vasodilate in the heat.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is opening and closing the blood vessels. So blood's rushing in, rushing out. And what you want, if you've got any injuries or build up of toxins or anything like that, you want the blood to go in, repair, and then come back out. So if you can kind of do that flushing mechanism, it's a bit like lymphatic drainage as well. So with the Normatex or compression sleeves that you get, I always say think of it like a tube of toothpaste. So you squeeze from the bottom, it all comes out the top.
Okay.
So you're basically getting rid of the toxins because it's actually pushing it. And your lymphatic system works parallel to your circulatory system.
Okay.
So again, with massage or any kind of form of physical touch, you're actually pushing a lot.
Okay.
So what you'll find after like doing the Normatex or the compression sleeves or having a massage, you'll either one, need to go to the toilet very quickly, or two, feel really dehydrated and be like, I'm so thirsty. Because again, it's kind of the body reacting to what's happening. So that you got those ones.
What about actually, so what about self-massage? So use a foam roller, SMR. Is that something that you would tend to recommend to people if they didn't have access as much to, is it the poor man's massage?
Yes, in a sense. Like, I can't understand people though that will foam roll for 45 minutes. And you hear it, you go, I foam roll 40 minutes after my session. I'm like, why? You've not got anything better to be doing. Like, yes, to a degree it helps, but like spending that kind of time, it's like when people warm up. They're spending like 40 odd minutes warming up. I'm like, you've just sat on a leg extension. Guess what? You could warm up doing a leg extension, but less weight, higher reps, get everything going. And then, you don't have to sit and do all this like hit, but because you're sat. Like, I don't get it. And it's like, same with the foam roller. Yes, to an extent, okay, rub a little bit on there and it feels good. And if that's what you can do, fine, but spend 5 minutes. Like, I wouldn't massage your car for 45 minutes. No. Because it would just be, counterproductive after a while, and then you'd be sore and it just wouldn't work. I like the massage guns. Massage guns are great. the problem with those is you can't actually treat yourself in the places you probably want to treat.
Yeah.
So like you trying to do your lower back or something,
Yeah.
you're putting yourself in a funny position. So
Yeah.
give it to your wife, girlfriend, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, just do that. And then 5 minutes they'll be bored, but guess what? 5 minutes is better than no minutes at all.
Yeah.
But things like plantar fasciitis,
Okay.
so on the bottom of the foot, on the arch of the foot,
Yeah.
getting a gun on that,
Yeah.
again, studies say that I think reduce it by 80%.
Oh, wow,
So if
okay.
you're a runner
Yeah.
or doing something on your feet all the time, just sit in, cross your leg over, get the massage gun,
Yeah.
work through that on the bottom.
Yeah.
Use your big toe as well, stretch that out a little bit, so we're stretching all of that kind of like hook in the Achilles. It's great, and also it feels so nice to actually release your foot, because again we just stand on them all day, or we're wearing high heels or boots, or I get a lot of tradies and I'm like, do you wear safety boots? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, tied up, so you've got really no ankle mobility. And then that's when they start to struggle further up the leg.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if your foot is just engaged all the time, or like if you're a woman wearing high heels and you're in a plantar flexed position, well, guess what? All your Achilles, your soleus, gastrocs, they're all going to be in a shortened position. So then when you actually then go to have a flat, you're going to be like, oh, God, why is that hurting?
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out like a few things. But yeah, I like the massage gun for things like that.
Okay.
Just trying to think what else.
I don't think there's not. Actually, there's probably loads out
Probably
there
is,
that people have played about with,
Trigger pointing.
Okay.
So if you get yourself a lacrosse ball or something like that, again, what I would be using is like my thumb or my elbow, something like that. But you can do it yourself. If you go, it's just something in the shoulder, you can get a lacrosse ball, put it against the wall, get in there, rotate. And you know what? You can find it, because as soon as you do it, you're like, that's it.
Yeah.
And then just gently kind of roll, apply the pressure, and it will help relieve
How
it.
often could someone do something like that? So like a bit of self-massage, whether it be with a lacrosse ball or whatever?
Again, daily. Like, I don't see there being a limit on it.
No.
Because you're not going to be going, you shouldn't be going stupidly deep into it. Again, gauging your own pressure sensitivity. Like we always were taught, if you're applying pressure to someone on a scale of 1 to 10, kind of wants to be about a 7.
Okay.
So you wouldn't just go digging in and they're like
I suppose some people just want almost that perception of more painful equals better. But I suppose the body will have a protective mechanism where actually, if there's too much pain, if there's too much pressure being applied, would that muscle tighten up even more after doing it?
Or would you do damage to that muscle?
Yeah.
So then you've just had a session and then you've done actually more damage to that. Because to me, it's a type of trauma.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas you'd get kicked playing football or dead leg or something like that.
Yeah.
By applying direct pressure for a long period of time, to me is a little bit like trauma to the muscle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want that all the time.
No.
So like I say, it just becomes a bit counterproductive. I say to people, again, with the plantar fascia on the bottom of the foot, if you're sitting in an office, get a ball.
Yeah.
Sit there. If you're going to be sat at a desk for 5 hours, just get a ball, roll it around, do what you can. But yeah, ultimately, you should be able to massage yourself and do things like that. But again, if you feel it's sore, step away from it.
Okay.
Because if you've been going, I've been getting into the shoulders and all that, it's like, we'll give it time to rest. Like I have a thing with acupuncture. With acupuncture, you're putting an object inside the body, and it's causing inflammation from that. You see people getting acupuncture, like you've just got acupuncture just now, later on you're training. Have you given the body time to recover or to adapt to what's happened to your body?
Yeah.
You haven't. And then you go, it's still not right. You're like, well, just give it a little bit of time. I always say after a session, 24, 36 hours, that's when you should be feeling the benefits.
Okay.
Because let the body adjust to what's happened to it, the inflammation or whatever it is. And after that time, that's when you should be feeling the benefits. So if you came to me for a session at 9 a.m. On a Monday morning and said, can I train later? Probably don't.
So I think that's a good question to lead in. So someone like Ryan at the moment, who is probably lifting 5-6 days a week. I don't know what his training split's like, but he can't really afford to take that time off from training. How would you, in an ideal world, schedule kind of any kind of body work with him? Before session, after session?
We do a bit of both. Again,
Okay.
because we've been working together for so long, we understand each other, like the synergy that we have. I know when he needs a certain type of treatment,
Okay.
when he doesn't, when he just needs to be left alone,
Right.
give it a rest, or if he, in his case, when he's had a couple of like serious injuries, you need to go and see someone else.
Yeah.
Because I can't deal with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And a labrum tear in your hip. I can do what I can do, but.
Yeah.
So we tend to, again, it works around you training at the same time of the day,
Okay.
say 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So we either do one before and get everything loosened up, and I quite like it because if, say, you're training chest, we do a bit of chest work.
Okay.
You getting the blood flow,
Yeah.
stretching through it. We'll do some mobilizations and all that. When you go into a session of training chest, you should just blow up.
Yeah.
And I've seen it, like worked with people specifically. They're like, can we try a session before?
Yeah.
Like legs. I'm not really feeling the connection in my legs.
Yeah.
Strip through the legs, get the blood going, have a stretch, go down. They train legs and they're like,
Yeah.
vascularity, everything like that. It just blows up. So that works in that sense. But ideally, you would want to do it after.
Okay.
And just speed up that recovery. Like I said before, with the lymphatic, the circulatory system. So if we can keep the blood flow going.
Yeah.
So like even come for a session after you train, get in a sauna.
Yeah.
So we've got all this, the heat and the blood flow and everything like that, opening everything up. So everything can be delivered into the systems that it needs to.
So you kind of kickstart that recovery
Yeah,
process.
yeah. Straight after,
Yeah.
So again, if you could do it after your session, have your food
Yeah.
and come up and we'll do it that way.
Okay.
Alternatively, you wouldn't want an ice bath after you train because you vasoconstrict.
Yeah.
And so there's no blood flow going to where it needs to be, and you're like, so that to me would hinder it.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like I say, I'm all for after a session.
So if it's after a session, would you try and focus on the area that the session has already kind of stimulated?
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily be like, okay, it was a lower body session, let's stay away from lower body, let's work on upper body today. It would tend to kind of
I'd go with what you've trained,
what you've
kind
trained.
of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, a lot of clients do split their body, so they'll go, "Can you treat my upper today?
Gotcha.
Next week, lower." And do it alternatively.
Yeah.
Because again, if you're just doing an hour session with someone, 45, you haven't really got time to do the full body.
Yeah.
You can touch on bits, but you won't get the full benefit really.
Yeah.
So that's where like you could spend an hour on the upper. So you go through the chest, shoulders, back, rhomboids, traps, lower back.
Yeah.
Even in slightly into the glutes, like around the crest. But each session is individual. Again, you can just, how do you want it? Like, got a bit of tendonitis in me, right, we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
I've got something in my, we'll deal with that, and then we'll
So oftentimes it's kind of like how you feeling on the day, what's movement looking like, what's feeling tight.
Yeah. Did you struggle with anything in that?
Yeah.
Just couldn't feel like I could open up that lat.
Okay.
Right. Okay. What do you mean? Then you might get them to pose.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, I see what you mean. You're not right. Okay. Well, let's try some retractions, this kind of that. Let's try some hanging. Hangings are great. Again, I'd always recommend hanging. So just find a bar or even from the door frame. You don't have to take your full weight off, but just hanging opens up that shoulder capsule. There's a book by he was a surgeon and he was fed up of cutting people open and doing it. He was like, there must be a better way. And he found that hanging really worked to open up the shoulder girdle and things like that. And then included with a few movements. So he does some, like flexion, extension, and some side lateral kind of work. And he says, do that. And so that's one of my staple things that I always say to people. Yeah. Get that in before and after your session.
Yeah.
And it's just so easy to do.
Yeah.
Go find a bar and
free,
hang from it.
Yeah,
it's free. Yeah.
And I suppose people don't need to be buying those boots. I can't remember what they're called, like the boots with the hooks on.
Yeah, and you hang upside down.
They hang upside down.
But again, like you've got the teeter tables.
Oh, yeah. Like the inversion tables.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I think Tita's the make, isn't
Right,
it? But
okay.
but yeah, like even that, like lengthening things out. But yeah, like for me, like you say, anything that's free that
Yeah.
you can do to enhance it. Like it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. If you've
Yeah.
got the money, great, have
Yeah.
the treatments, do this. But yeah, what you know, especially for the average Joe, so to speak, or if you're on prep, it costs you enough anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Like with some of your clients, bikini,
Oh, yeah.
tan,
Yeah.
shoes, hair, makeup, all that.
Yeah.
But by the time you come to the show, you've done 1,500, 12,
Easily.
2 grand.
Yeah.
So anything that you can do for free or actually get the benefit from, you know, like if you can't afford an ice bath, find a river.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's simple as that. Or in the winter, get yourself a Lumi pod or whatever it is, an
Yeah.
inflatable one for 80 quid. It's going to chill itself.
Yeah.
So just get in a, you know, but you're not then having to pay
Yes.
to go use a cryo chamber or anything like that.
That's a good point. I think I've seen some people, you can actually use like an open top freezer,
Yeah.
can't you? I think.
Yeah. I think Bumstead used to do that.
Okay.
But again, I think when he lived in Canada,
Yeah.
it was in his garage.
Okay.
So he just opened it. It's like, oh, that's
don't
cold.
even need to turn it on.
Yeah,
Like.
that's cold. So, but again, you know, use nature.
Yeah.
Like, I think we, you know, sunlight. How valuable is vitamin D and sunlight to everyone?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we live in England.
Yeah.
We've probably had the worst summer that we've ever had.
Yeah.
But being out in the sun, you know, you feel better for it.
Yeah.
So again, it's that heat and the, you know, like the UVs and things like that.
Yeah.
So there are things out there that you can use, like
For free.
For free.
Yeah. What are some of the most common injuries / things that need to be managed a little bit better with, you know, people more at that elite level, you know, bodybuilders, etc.?
The most common injuries I see are lower back, shoulder.
Okay.
They're pretty, and knees generally, just because of with knees, it's the pure volume and weight that you shift training legs.
Yeah.
You know, and then shoulders and back. I think is just because it's that you're using them within everything.
Yeah.
But the one thing with back is, if that goes, you're screwed.
How can someone stay on top of that? Because obviously, like, I hear that all the time. You know, something's hurt my lower back, or like fatigue. I think you get a lot of fatigue in your lower back, which isn't necessarily a big issue, but obviously that needs to be managed.
I think people tend to neglect it because they can't see it.
Yeah.
So people will train their upper back, but actually kind of neglect their lower back. So for me, hypers, they're one of the best. You know, I don't know what you
love them,
but for me, they're one of the best exercises you can do for your lower back.
Yeah.
And then you've got the reverse hyper.
Yeah.
Which was it West Coast Barbell that he?
Yeah, Louis Simmons, wasn't
Yes.
it? West Side Barbell. Yeah.
West Side,
yes.
Yeah. And you look at the benefits that's had, and people just rave about that movement.
Yeah.
And actually, it's quite easy to, if you haven't got an actual reverse hyper machine, lay on a Swiss ball on a bench or something like that, and just lift your legs. Or I say to people on the edge of their bed, if you've got quite a high bed, you can actually just lay on the corner of it, and then just raise up and just kind of do that movement.
Yeah.
So again, for free, you can do that.
I suppose you're getting a little bit of kind of traction on that spine as well, aren't you?
Yeah.
That,
So
the unloading.
Yeah. So and that's the whole point of it. When you go down, it kind of just,
because you almost want to kind of just round over a little bit, and you kind of tuck that pelvis as you come over.
Because that's where a lot of people tend to get it. It's like L4 to S1.
Okay.
It's right at the bottom of the spine into the pelvis, and it's quite tricky to actually work that or try and figure that out for yourself. How can that's stiff and tight. One thing I'd say is glutes.
Yeah.
Work your glutes,
Yeah.
because a lot of time if you've got weak glutes, your back tends to overcompensate.
Yeah.
So always train your glutes, and you can tell. Like I do muscle tests and things like that, and you're like, "Is that it?"
Yeah,
and they're like, "I'm pushing." And you're like, "You need to start working on them." You know, I mean, probably a lot of women these days have got very good, strong glutes because that seems to be the in thing.
Yeah.
You know, so for like lower back, and I'd always look above and below a joint or where the pain is and go, okay, so like knee pain, right, look above and below, what's going on? You've got a lot of muscles that cross over the knee joint. Is it the IT band, which runner's knee.
Yeah.
So when people get a lot of pain on the outside of the knee, tends to be something to do with the IT band or something like that. The pes anserine tendon there that's got 3 muscles attached to it.
Okay.
So that could be causing some problems. So again, you kind of look at it and go, okay.
Further up the chain somewhere, what's going on?
Exactly, yeah. Like you got sartorius that starts on the inside of your knee and comes up into the hip. And so people are going, I've got this real hip pain. You work on that, and that disperses.
Yeah.
So,
because people automatically, I've got pain there, what's going on there?
Yeah.
I've got pain in my knee, what's going on my knee?
Yeah, it's not always that specific spot. So treat as a whole.
Yeah.
And look at things in a way. I always say to my clients, look at a muscle chart. Just take 10 minutes to go and look at a muscle chart or a book on the muscles, and then go, oh, that muscle attaches in there, that goes there, and that does this.
Yeah.
It'll give you such an eye-opening into what your muscle actually does.
Yeah.
Like when I first started and did anatomy physiology, I'm looking at this muscle chart going, oh. And then they're like, yeah, so when your bicep does this and when that does this, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And you see people when you're doing your exams and things, they're like, oh, what does this do? And they're sitting there like, yeah, that rotates. So you see people sitting, oh, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And it's because you associate it with what it is. And like anyone who's competing, if they're looking at their muscles, look at a muscle chart and go, well, why is that not as big as that? And why is that? Because, it'll make such a difference.
One question I was going to ask actually, so on kind of a similar thought as what we've been having, what tends to be the biggest issues with regards to holding a pose? So, we can think about any specific poses in any kind of classes. What are the things that tend to hold people back from getting good positions? What muscles tend to need to be worked on a little bit more in those? What's had in your experience the biggest impact on someone's posing by being worked on?
I find a lot of people can't open their lats.
Yeah.
They struggle with that lat movement, whether or not it needs releasing. So you could do a lot of lat work, because think about the size of how big the lats are. The other thing is having like scapular control and things like that, and working through that. If people can't actually get it into position and work around it, like if you can't protract and retract, you can't seem to open up.
So what are some practical things that people could do if that was an issue? Because like I have that. Many, especially my figure competitors, to have those lats that are popping out, like, is big.
Yeah.
What's something that they could do, like, from a practical perspective that could impact that?
So what did you do? If you knew that you couldn't, how did you go about it?
In all honesty, because for me, posing was relatively new, I just thought it was a case for me of just practice posing more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I eventually kind of got better and better and better. But equally at the same time, I was kind of like, I've got lats. Why can't I get them out?
Yeah.
Like, it's just not looking right.
And you didn't have anyone that could actually go, right, do this.
No.
And then do that.
No.
Okay. So, yeah, one thing with posing, just keep posing. Like, don't wait till I'm 6 weeks out.
Yeah.
I'm going to start my posing routine now.
Yeah.
It's too late.
Yeah.
You need to keep on top of it. Like, from 16 week, you should be posing. You might not see much in the muscles and things like that, because you're still a bit fluffy and a bit soft, but start getting to know what that feels like. And also proprioception. Yes, you're looking in a mirror, but when you're on stage, you've got no mirror to look at. So you need to then go, well, is my shoulder up here or is it down there? Am I straight? Am I level? Are my hands at the right position? You need to work on it so that you've got that proprioception to understand, because you've got nothing in front of you.
So take away the mirror.
Yeah. So do it in the mirror so you can get it, and just start hitting the poses. Like you say, practice. But then if you're struggling with something, then you need to figure out, why is that not opening?
Yeah.
So again, with something with the lats, for me, it's like actually having shoulder control.
Okay.
So like, can we depress it? Can we contract it? Can we protract it? And just getting all that working, and then figure out a way of actually opening. So like you might have so Ryan might he won't mind me saying this, but he has a, you know, slight routine of like, right, back, shoulders, up, boom.
Gotcha.
You know, just a little like cue for
Yeah.
each one, and then go into it fully.
Yeah.
You know, but like I say, keep practicing it.
Okay.
It definitely makes a difference.
Are there any kind of drills that people could be using? So you say about kind of practicing retraction, etc.
So I would tend to use bands for that.
Okay.
Again, you know, like I call them like chicken wings, something like that. But if you had a band that's attached, even if it was like a smaller band between both, and just kept going,
Okay.
eventually you're going to get that connection of going, oh, I'm starting to feel that a little bit. You know, I'm winging out.
Yeah.
So like bands are really, I quite like bands for it. Even now on one, so if you were to get into a men's physique pose, say, and even with women, you know, they have to is it figure or
figure.
they have to do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on a cable, if you've got two cables quite low, you can actually pull up into that position.
Yeah.
So you've added, you don't need like, you know, need like 1 kilo, 1.5 kilos, but you're actually then train and getting it to that position each time.
Okay.
So there's like little things that you can do, and again, getting into that position and feeling comfortable in it.
Yeah.
Because if you're on stage and you're being held,
Yeah.
you've got to be able to like stand there like.
Yeah. Fatigued.
So so again, it's a conditioning method.
Yeah.
Of actually being able to stand there and be like, you know, so like with Ricardo, he's a 212 guy, little nugget, just a ball of muscle.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get into his lat spread because he physically couldn't internally rotate, put his hands behind his back, and then open up.
Okay.
So we worked on his internal external rotation, really got that movement and mobility in his shoulders, so that then he could go, you know, and that can be anything. Like, again, as a homework, I'll say, like, when you're showering, when you're drying yourself, take the towel behind the neck and and just sit in there and then lift it up and then do that. So like, just think about getting the mobility, because if you haven't got the mobility, you're not going to be able to get into a pose. It's like if people do a front double bicep, if you're a bit all tight through here, you're going to be like closed off. And so then you're not opening up fully. So you're really doing yourself an injustice by not opening fully. And it's obviously going to be harder if you're bulkier. So like, again, if you're in off season, you're trying to pose, chances are you're probably not going to look as good as what you would on stage because you're so bulky and, like, you know, you can't actually physically get into that position, which is fine, because once it starts to come off, your joints can move a little bit better and things like that. So, there's that. I know there's another thing, and Ryan's open about this, so again, he won't mind me, is isotensions is one thing that he does. So contracting the muscle and holding it for like 30 seconds and doing rounds of that. Again, it gets you conditioned, it gets you blowing out your ass. But suddenly you start getting conditioned to actually being holding it.
Are you doing that with load, or is that just like body weight?
Yeah, just body weight. So again, I think we touched on earlier the FST7 approach
when we were speaking beforehand.
From Hani Rambod, where it's after an exercise, it's then you then contract that muscle and hold it, which that kind of is supposed to stretch the fascia from the inside. So the muscle's actually filling up and stretching that fascia that surrounds the muscle. So again, it's a kind of same as like an isotension, a hold, and just doing it that way. So,
what's your take on like static stretching? So people, I suppose, especially beginners, there's that thought that, like, before you work out, you warm up, then you do your lifting, then you do your cardio, then you do your static stretches kind of at the end or whatever. There's kind of set routine. So it's quite a common question you do get off of people. So what's your general take on static stretching? Is it useful? And even if it is useful, are there just better options?
So one thing I always go back to is being at school. You were taught the very basics of stretching, and still to this day, people do those stretches. Things have moved on a little bit. So yes, you know, feel that stretch, okay, but what you want to be doing is warming up and getting blood flow and getting it all in there, so that when you actually stretch it, it wants to stretch. If you're cold and try and stretch, could cause injury.
Yeah.
So one thing I like to do is stretch during.
Okay.
So if we were, let's say we were training legs and we're doing some RDLs, which is a great stretch for it as well.
Yeah.
But after that, maybe just, if you're doing your rest, stretch.
And what would you do? Maybe replicate that same RDL position?
Potentially. I really like, again, this for hamstrings, to have a bend in the knee.
Okay, yeah.
So again, when we were at school, taught, right, keep your legs straight, don't bounce, don't do this. And it's like, think about your hamstring. If you put a slight bend in it, in your knee, you'll target your belly of the muscle, which is the thickest, fattest part of the muscle. So why would you not want to stretch that?
Yeah.
Because then that surely should give a little bit more to the insertion and origin of the muscle.
Yeah.
So I would then, if for hamstrings, I would say, right, let's have a slight bend in it.
Yeah.
And all you'll do is feel that really in like the belly in the center of the muscle. Okay. So I'd say stretch that, then go into maybe a straight leg.
Okay.
Just for the insertion and origin kind of element to it.
How long would someone do that for between sets?
Again, whatever your rest time is. But I would say hold it for like 20 to 30 seconds.
Okay.
That's how I would kind of gauge that. Don't need to sit in it for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like my rest time's 2 minutes, so I'm going to stretch for the whole thing. Again, you don't have to do that. And the other thing we do, we rush through stretching because we go, I've got an hour and a half to train. Yeah. But then you go, didn't factor it. Yeah. And PTs and things like that, they're the worst for it. Yeah. They'll tell their clients, all right, stretch, warm up, do this. They don't do it themselves. No. They'll finish training and just go, right, I'm off. Yeah.
It's like the token bit of abs at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, 50, done. Done. You're like, your abs are like any other muscle. Train them like any other muscle. If you want them to get bigger, add weight.
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Don't just go, I do 1,000 sit-ups a day. It's like, okay.
Where's that got you?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, would you do 1,000 bicep curls a day?
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, your abs like every other muscle, and they respond in the same way. You know, they need tension, don't they?
But like static stretching, again, I say to people, if you haven't got time to do it in the gym or you forget about it, do you sit in front of Netflix every night? Do you sit and watch football? Do you sit on the floor and stretch? Have you got kids? Yeah. Get them involved. Yeah. So when you're at home, your kids are playing on the floor, right, sit there. Yeah. Right, oh yeah, I can feel a little stretch in my hamstrings. Yes. You know, so again, you don't have to go too hard on them, but actually just, where you can, again, it's free. Yeah. If you're sitting on the floor playing with your kid, you can get into a stretch. Yeah. Or you can get into some form of mobility kind of, you probably do some 90-90s. Yeah, yeah. And if the kid's like, oh, what are you doing? Like, again, you get the kid involved in it, or somehow.
I was with my toddler the other day, actually doing like a happy baby stretch on the floor with him, and he loved it. And at the same time, like I'm not in pain, but like this is hard for me to hold, and you're laughing at me. But you can get them involved as well. And he's 2.5. He's like, yep, this is easy.
Yeah, but you
like, lose it
again. Like I say, just do it where you can. Like I think a lot of this is saying, like, how can you do things for yourself? Yeah. Rather than maybe come and see me or going to a coach or actually paying for to use a sauna or ice bath. I think. So like when you're at home, just have a little stretch. Yeah. If you're in the office, get up and move. And there's a corner there's a corner of every room you can go and stretch your pecs through it. Yeah. It's just a great. You're in external rotation. You're stretching through that. You're like, but then you go back to your computer and you're like,
you're there, like I'm doing at the moment, actually.
Yeah, just like internally rotated for hours. Or if you're driving and you drive like a gangster and you're just like this, eventually this is going to go, I quite like being in this shortened position. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to sit out here all the time. Yeah. And then it's kind of like, then when you try and do it, it's going to be harder. Yeah. So just, again, like, take breaks from work. Go and stretch, go and have a look. You don't have to do it for 40 minutes. Yeah, yeah. But just here and there throughout the day, it's worth doing.
Let's go into, I think, is supplementation something that you kind of deal with clients, especially like some of the hot topics at the moment, use of, BPC 157 and things like that. Is that something that you've seen with people have an effect? Is that something you're seeing being used more and more? what would kind of generally be your advice with that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so again, with supplements and nutrition, I'm not a nutritionist, but I can give nutritional advice.
Yeah.
So if you came to me with something and said, oh, maybe try that, or blood pressure, have a bit of beetroot.
Yeah.
Something that you just know, but, I'm not a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And same with supplements, and, I've researched it. I look at all the evidence from it. I look at the studies. You follow the good people on Instagram that know their shit.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to, especially like the peptides and the BPC 157, it's proven. And yeah, if you've got like a niggle or anything like that, try it. Because like I say, just do your research.
Yeah.
Look into it. Speak to people who have maybe done it or know about it a little bit more, and see what they say. But I'm all for peptides and things like that. I wish, being in the UK, the regulatory system was a bit better and that it was more accessible to people, because I definitely think it would help. But as we know, the pharmaceutical industry is all about how much money they can make.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. Whereas in America, and like I know a lot of your clients are in America, they have access to things
there
like
are a lot
that.
more clinics.
Yeah, a lot more clinics. With the men as well, like the TRT, testosterone replacement, all those kind of things. It's very accessible over there. Whereas here for the UK, it's not as good. It's more underground and things like that. So again, you have to be super careful. Because again, in America, you can go to a clinic that's, properly done and all this. Whereas here,
it's just too regulated over here and controlled. It's hard to get that kind of stuff.
But yeah, I'm all for. I've used BPC 157. I had a little bit of tendonitis in the arms. It was great, and I had to be again quite wary because of what I do. So because I wasn't stopping what I was doing. Because I couldn't. It's my job. You have to then manage doing enough, not doing too much. So mine came on, I think, from like doing pull-ups. Like that gripping, that whole kind of thing. So I thought, right, I need to do some more pull-ups. Then it started to come into the forearms and the elbows, like epicondylitis and things like that. And I was doing self-massage, I was getting the barbell, just smashing through my forearms, which is great. Again, that's another free technique for people. If you're having trouble through the forearms, get a barbell, roll it on it.
Like the roller. Oh, okay.
Just get it. One, it's heavy, so it's got a weight to it. And you can actually just get it right, and you'll find the trigger point or the spot that really, and you just hang out there. Just let it there, and then if you want, just slightly flex and extend your wrist, maybe a rotation in there if you can. That's a great way of doing self-massage.
Is that something you would throw in between sets, post-workout, pre-workout?
I'd probably do it post, or on, say you're doing leg day, and you're like, I'm giving it all a rest. Do it then. But yeah, so I've used, like I say, BP Sit and used that, and it went. So I'm an advocate. Try before you buy. And then I'm like, I'm all for it. So things like that.
Let's kind of dive back to Ryan and that last Olympia, which obviously he won, because you were there with him at the Olympia. What did that look like? What kind of did the treatments look like that close to show? Were you needed, or was it just a holiday you ran through the business?
So the last one, the Olympia, which he won, was in Florida, and he actually did a couple of weeks in New York prior. So I think we're going to be doing something similar this year.
The New York Pro, was it?
No, so he competed in the New York Pro. And won that. And he did Pittsburgh before that, but came second. Because again, he just didn't peak on the prejudging. I couldn't go to that, just with work commitments and things like that. But I've been to the Olympia with him the last 6 years, I think. So always try and go. And like I say, I was at the New York Pro with him, so I went out to New York. Because again, we can treat pretty much up to show day. And again, if that's just more like a relaxations kind of thing, and just working through any little niggles or anything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, Florida last year was it was surreal, and to actually be in that situation, we've been so many times, and he's not won. And so you're just like, ugh, again, or this was wrong, or that was wrong. Posing wasn't as good, and this kind of thing. But now we seem to have a bit of a formula.
Okay.
Won't tell people what that is. But like now, like I do his tan.
Oh, okay.
Or like, you know, like just little bits now. We go for our morning walks.
Okay.
We talk. So again, there's that therapy side of it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I'll never know this, but in the depth of prep, your mind is like all over the place. So whether I'm just you know, a bouncing block for just like thoughts and you know, doubts and creeping in, or should I be eating that? Should I do that? What about this? You know, so now we've kind of got this this kind of formula that we use, and it clearly works.
It's become a bit of a mental routine, almost like, I think it's big in I can't remember what footballer it was, always having to wear the same socks or something. It's kind of like that thing, almost like a superstition as well in a way.
Yeah, and that's and it is, and a lot of people will be like that. Oh no, I only eat that at certain times. I only do that exercise. I like that exercise. And again, for the treatment side of it, we now know, again, working so closely for nearly 8 years, what we can do and what we can't do. So again, this year we're probably going out to New York before, and then to Vegas. So I'll probably be with him every day for 3 weeks, which isn't what you know, most people can do.
Well, hopefully you like the bloke.
Well,
it'd be easy to.
Yeah. I mean, there is times I don't, but, but yeah. So we'll probably be together for like 3 weeks. So there we can do little bits here and there without it, you know. So if it's let's do a little pre-workout, or let's do a post-workout. Leave it for today. Let's just go for a walk, active recovery. You know. So again, you figure out what works for you and what works best, and it might take a little bit of time to figure that out. Like from your experience of competing, you know, you probably now know you're like, I probably need to do a bit more of that, or I need to do this. So, but yeah, like I say, for that week leading up to the Olympia, I did a little bit, but not a great deal. But I think you're there more as, or certainly for me, I'm there as a support act. I always liken it to like you've got an F1 driver in the car, and then you got the mechanics. You know, the F1 driver and his car is the most important thing. As a mechanic, what can you do to make sure that functions as well as it can? And like I say, it could just be to be talking to go for a walk, treatments, you know, whatever it might be. You know, just sit and say nothing. You know, I know there's times where with all clients, some want to talk, some just want to shut up for an hour. I'm all for it. Silence is, stillness is key, as they say. So I wouldn't, you know, worry too much into, you know, am I doing enough? Or, by that time, like you say, you're not training to build muscle at like 2-3 weeks out. It's just kind of getting into that, you know, you're just getting blood flow, just moving things around and just kind of keeping everything kind of normal as possible.
It's keeping you in the game, physically as well as mentally. Isn't it?
Because again, if you don't train for a day and you're so close, you'll probably be like, I feel flat. You've taken your carbs out, so you're like, I'm just not getting that pump. You're like, don't worry, you're going to put some carbs in soon. You know, so again, it just could be that reassurance, or you know, that text message going, mate, you're doing all right. You know, you're doing fine. You're looking good. You know, just think about this. Just think about this. You know, we do a lot of like mental work. So again, I class myself as a sports therapist, and you've got that therapy side of it, which I was trained in by an actual psychologist and things. So would teach you about what you can say to someone, what you should say to someone, what you shouldn't say to someone. I know you're going to win, mate. But as much as you want to be like hyping up and things like that, you've got to be realistic and be going, I don't know if you look good or you were a bit off or things like that. And again, I've got that relationship with Ryan and Ricardo as well still, because I still talk to Ricardo a lot, where I can be brutally honest. Because I think in the industry, there's a lot of yes men. And it's like, oh, you should have won that, mate. No, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. That was off, and that was off. He was bigger, he was better. And if on the day someone is actually just better than you, just say, he was better.
Yeah.
It's a simple fact, you know. So yeah, it's certainly a nice place to be though, like go into the Olympias and things like that. Again, if you're into bodybuilding, just go to the Olympia. Hang around for a week and whatever, because you can go to the hotels where it's at. Like I think this year's at Resort World. So if you're in Vegas from like, you know, the 6th of October through to the 14th, get yourself down to like Resort World. You'll see all your favourite bodybuilders. And you'll just get full access. I don't know any other sport that you can get access to people like that. Like to the people that you know, the top of the game. You can be walking and go, oh, there's Hadi, you know, there's this, and you just see them. So it's a good place to be though. And like I say, it's not all work.
There's a little bit of play there.
And especially this year, it's in Vegas.
You can never go wrong with that.
So
So I think there's a really good place to kind of finish things out. Is there anything you'd like to speak about, anywhere where people can kind of find you? Obviously, you've got your product there if people are looking to find something.
I can reach out. So I'll put it in camera, just give it a little, that one. Yeah, there we go.
So
that's the Replus Heating Muscle Serum. And it's for muscular aches and pains, pre or post workout. You can find that on www.re-plus.co.uk. I'm based in Stamford. In a Body Balance, but it's at Fusion 3 Fitness, which I know you know and have trained there. And on Instagram, I don't have a business page on Instagram, it's just my own, which is Jonny Hands _. So people can find me questions.
You're usually the guy in the background in a lot of the Instagram photos, aren't you? You don't push your Instagram out there.
No,
you're the guy at the back of the picture.
And again, I like that.
You like the secret weapon.
Kind of. I just like knowing that I'm in the background. I don't need to be at the front of the camera, or like, for me this is like a bit. And even when you do like YouTubes with athletes and they're like, right, talk about this, and you're like, it's not about me, like it's just focus on. Like I say, the F1, you've got the mechanics in the background. You wouldn't know a mechanic, but you know a driver. You know, so I'm all for that.
So no pressure.
Just take me out of it. Wasn't me.
I like it.
That's where I am, and
Well, thank you for joining us today, and
Pleasure.
just remember, like, subscribe if you're seeing this on social media, or make sure you come and find us at the Elite Physique Training Podcast.
And also, just to finish, we might get you in for a session and film that.
Yeah, I'm more than up for it.
More than
up for it. You know, I've when you first brought it out, you know, I've obviously tried your product and absolutely love it, by the way. So it's not just we've come in here, put something on the table and we're promoting it. Like, I've actually used it. It's brilliant stuff. And it's actually me that said put it on the table. So
And then, but again, alongside this, of people understanding what kind of goes on with inside a session, if we can maybe film it on you.
Easy.
And then people can understand it a little bit more. And then you could speak about, I've not tried that before, that's a bit different. And,
so love it.
And we'll get you ready for your next show.